Resuming page 120. Glands. Glands are secretory organs. Many glands are composed primarily of epithelium, with a supporting network of connective tissue. These glands develop from an infolding or outfolding of epithelium in the embryo. If the gland maintains an open contact with the epithelium from which it developed, a duct is present. Glands with ducts are called exocrine glands, and their ducts are lined with epithelium. Alternatively, some glands become separated from the epithelium of their origin. Glands that have no ducts are called endocrine glands. Endocrine glands have extensive blood vessels in the connective tissue of the glands. The cellular products of endocrine glands, which are called hormones, are secreted into the bloodstream and are carried throughout the body. Some of the endocrine glands form from non-epithelial tissue. For example, the medulla of the adrenal gland is formed from neural crest cells, and the cortex of the adrenal gland is formed from mesoderm. In addition, cardiac muscle cells can function as endocrine glands. Most exocrine glands are composed of many cells and are called multicellular glands, but some exocrine glands are composed of a single cell and are called unicellular glands. Goblet cells of the respiratory system are unicellular glands that secrete mucus. Multicellular glands can be classified further according to the structure of their ducts. Glands that have ducts with few branches are called simple, and glands with ducts that branch repeatedly are called compound. Further classification is based on whether the ducts end in tubules, small tubes, in sac-like structures called acini. Grapes suggest a cluster of grapes or small sacs, or in alveoli, hollow sacs. Tubular glands can be classified as straight or coiled. Most tubular glands are simple and straight, simple and coiled, or compound and coiled. Acinar glands can be simple or compound. Exocrine glands can also be classified according to how products leave the cell. Merocrine glands, such as water-producing sweat glands, and the exocrine portion of the pancreas secrete products with no loss of actual cellular material. Secretions are either actively transported or packaged in vesicles, and then released by the process of exocytosis at the free surface of the cell. Apocrine glands, such as the milk-producing mammary glands, discharge fragments of the gland cells in the secretion. Products are retained within the cell, and portions of the cell are pinched off to become part of the secretion. Apocrine glands, however, also produce merocrine secretions. Most of the volume secreted by apocrine glands are merocrine in origin. Holocrine glands, such as sebaceous oil glands of the skin, shed entire cells. Products accumulate in the cytoplasm of each epithelial cell. The cell ruptures and dies, and the entire cell becomes part of the secretion. Endocrine glands are so variable in their structure that they are not classified easily. They are described in chapters 17 and 18. Connective tissue. Connective tissue is abundant, and it makes up part of every organ in the body. The major structural characteristic that distinguishes connective tissue from the other three tissue types is that it consists of cells separated from each other by abundant extracellular matrix. Connective tissue structure is diverse, and it performs a variety of important functions. End of page 120, beginning page 121. Most of the page is diagrams of, so I'll just skip down to the bottom. Functions of connective tissue. Connective tissue perform the following major categories of functions. 1. Enclosing and separating. Sheets of connective tissues form capsules around organs, such as the liver and kidneys. Connective tissue also forms layers that separate tissues and organs. For example, connective tissues separate muscles, arteries, veins, and nerves from one another. 2. Connecting tissues to one another. For example, tendons are strong cables or bands of connective tissue that attach muscles to bone, and ligaments are connective tissue bands that hold bones together. 3. Supporting and moving. Bones of the skeletal system provide rigid support for the body, and the semi-rigid cartilage supports structures such as the nose, ears, and surfaces of the joints. Joints between bones allow one part of the body to move relative to the other parts. 4. Storing. Adipose tissue, fat, stores high energy molecules, and bones store minerals, such as calcium and phosphate. 5. Cushioning and insulating. Adipose tissue cushions and protects the tissue it surrounds, and provides an insulating layer beneath the skin that helps conserve heat. End of page 121, beginning page 122. 6. Transporting. Blood transports substances throughout the body, such as gases, nutrients, enzymes, hormones, and cells of the immune system. 7. Protecting. Cells of the immune system and blood provide protection against toxins and tissue injury, as well as from microorganisms. Bones protect underlying structures from injury. Cells of connective tissue. The specialized cells of the various connective tissue produce the extracellular matrix, the names of the cells, and with suffixes that identify the cell functions as blasts, sites, or clasts. Blasts create the matrix, sites maintain it, and clasts break it down for remodeling. For example, fibroblasts are cells that form fibrous connective tissue, and fibrocytes maintain it. Chondroblasts form cartilage. Chondro refers to cartilage. and chondrocytes maintain it. Osteoblasts form bone. Osteo means bone. Osteocytes maintain it, and osteoclasts break it down. See Chapter 6. Adipose, or fat cells, also called adipocytes, contain larger amounts of lipid. The lipid pushes the rest of the cell contents to the periphery so that each cell appears to contain a large, centrally located lipid droplet within a thin layer of cytoplasm around it. Adipose cells are rare in some connective tissue types, such as cartilage, are abundant in others, such as loose connective tissue, or are predominant, such as in adipose tissue. Mast cells are commonly found beneath membranes in loose connective tissue and along small blood vessels of organs. They contain chemicals such as heparin, histamine, and proteolytic enzymes. These substances are released in response to injury, such as trauma and infection, and play important roles in inflammation. White blood cells, or leukocytes, see Chapter 18, continuously move from blood vessels into connective tissues. The rate of movement increases dramatically in response to injury or infection. In addition, accumulations of lymphocytes, a type of white blood cell, are common in some connective tissues, such as in the connective tissue beneath the epithelial lining of certain parts of the digestive system. Macrophages are found in some connective tissue types. They are derived from monocytes, a white blood cell type. Macrophages are either fixed and do not move through the connective tissue in which they are found, or are wandering macrophages and move by amoeboid movement through the connective tissue. Macrophages phagocytize foreign and injured cells, and they play a major role in providing protection against infections. Undifferentiated mesenchymal cells, sometimes called stem cells, are embryonic cells that persist in adult connective tissue. They have the potential to differentiate to form adult cell types, such as fibroblasts or smooth muscle cells, in response to injury. End of page 122, beginning page 123. Extracellular matrix. The extracellular matrix of connective tissue has three major components. 1. Protein fibers. 2. Ground substance consisting of non-fibrous protein and other molecules. And 3. Fluid. The structure of the matrix gives connective tissue types most of their functional characteristics, such as the ability of bones and cartilage to bear weight of tendons and ligaments, to withstand tension, and of the skin's dermis to withstand punctures, abrasions, and other abuses. Protein fibers of the matrix. Three types of protein fibers: collagen, reticular, and elastic fibers help form connective tissue. Collagen fibers consist of collagen, which accounts for 1/4 to 1/3 of total body protein, or 6% of total body weight. Within fibroblasts, chains of amino acids called collagen alpha chains are synthesized, and 3 collagen alpha chains wind around each other to form a microscopic rope-like helix called a collagen molecule. After collagen molecules are secreted, they are modified. Some amino acids are cleaved off of the collagen molecules to produce tropocollagen molecules. Tropocollagen molecules are then linked together to make long collagen fibrils. The collagen fibrils are then joined together in bundles to form collagen fibers. Approximately 25 types of collagen alpha chains, each encoded by a separate gene, are known, and they combine to form approximately 20 types of collagen. Collagen fibers are very strong and flexible, but quite inelastic. There are at least 20 types of collagen fibers, many of which are specific to certain tissues. Collagen fibers differ in the types of amino acids that make up the polypeptide chains. Of the 20 types of collagen fibers, 6 types are most common: tendons, ligaments, skin, and bone contain mainly type 1 collagen. Cartilage is mainly type 2 collagen, and reticular fibers are mainly type 3 collagen. Reticular fibers are very fine collagen fibers, and therefore are not chemically distinct category of fibers. They are very short, thin fibers that branch to form a network and appear different microscopically from other collagen fibers. Reticular fibers are not as strong as most collagen fibers, but networks of reticular fibers fill spaces between tissues and organs. Elastic fibers consist of proteins called elastin. As the name suggests, this protein has the ability to return to its original shape after being stretched or compressed. Elastin gives the tissue in which it is found an elastic quality. Fibroblasts secrete polypeptide chains, which are then linked together to form a network. The polypeptide chains recoil when they are stretched. Other matrix molecules. 2 types of large, non-fibrous molecules called hyaluronic acid and proteoglycans are part of the extracellular matrix. These molecules consist most of the ground substance of the matrix, the quote shapeless end quote background against which the collagen fibers are seen through the microscope. The molecules themselves, however, are not shapeless but are highly structured. Hyaluronic acid is a long, unbranched polysaccharide chain. End of page 123, beginning page 124. Composed of repeating disaccharide units. It gives a very slippery quality to the fluids that contain it. For that reason, it is a good lubricant for joint cavities. See Chapter 8. Hyaluronic acid is also found in large quantities in connective tissue and is the major component of the vitreous humor of the eye. See Chapter 15. A proteoglycan monomer is a large molecule that consists of 80 to 100 polysaccharides called glycosaminoglycans, such as chondroitin sulfate, each attached by one end to a protein core. The protein cores of many proteoglycan monomers can attach through link proteins to a long molecule of hyaluronic acid to form a proteoglycan aggregate. Proteoglycan aggregates trap large quantities of water, which allows them to return to their original shape when compressed or deformed. There are several types of glycosaminoglycans, and their abundance varies with each connective tissue type. Several adhesive molecules are found in ground substance. These adhesive molecules hold the proteoglycan aggregates together and to structures such as the plasma membranes. A specific adhesive molecule predominates in certain types of ground substance. For example, chondronectin is in the ground substance of cartilage. Osteonectin is in the ground substance of bone, and fibronectin is in the ground substance of fibrous connective tissues. Classification of connective tissue. Connective tissue types blend into one another, and the transition points cannot be defined precisely. As a result, the classification scheme for connective tissues is somewhat arbitrary. Classification schemes for connective tissue are influenced by 1. Protein fibers and the arrangement of protein fibers in the extracellular matrix. 2. Protein fibers and ground substance in the extracellular matrix. And 3. A fluid extracellular matrix. The classification of connective tissues used in this book is presented in Table 4.6. The two major categories of connective tissue are embryonic and adult connective tissue. Embryonic connective tissue. Embryonic connective tissue is called mesenchyme. It is made up of irregularly shaped fibroblasts surrounded by abundant semi-fluid extracellular matrix, in which delicate collagen fibers are distributed. It forms in the embryo during the 3rd and 4th weeks of development from mesoderm and neural crest cells. See Chapter 29. And all adult connective tissue types develop from it. By 8 weeks of development, most of the mesenchyme has become specialized to form the types of connective tissue seen in adults, as well as muscle, blood vessels, and other tissues. The major source of remaining embryonic connective tissue in the newborn is found in the umbilical cord, where it is called mucous connective tissue, or Wharton's jelly. See, Table 4.7b. The structure of mucous connective tissue is similar to that of mesenchyme. Pausing the reading to read Table 4.6. Classification of connective tissue. A. Embryonic connective tissue. 1. Mesenchyme. 2. Mucus. B. Adult connective tissue. 1. Loose, areolar. 2. Dense. A. Dense, regular, collagenous. B. Dense, regular, elastic. C. Dense, irregular, collagenous. D. Dense, irregular, elastic. 3. Special properties. A. Adipose or adipose. B. Reticular. 4. Cartilage. A. Hyaline or hyaline. B. Fibrocartilage. C. Elastic. 5. Bone. A. Cancellous. B. Compact. 6. Blood and blood and hemopoietic tissue. Resuming the reading. Adult connective tissue. Adult connective tissue consists of 6 types. Loose, dense connective tissue with special properties. Cartilage, bone and blood, and hemopoietic tissue. Loose connective tissue. Loose connective tissue, Table 4.8, which is sometimes referred to as areolar tissue, consists of protein fibers that form a lacy network with numerous fluid-filled spaces. Areolar tissue is the quote loose packing, end quote, material of most organs and other tissues. It attaches the skin to underlying tissues. It contains collagen, reticular, and elastic fibers, and a variety of cells. For example, fibroblasts produce the fibrous matrix. Macrophages move through the tissue, engulfing bacteria and cell debris. Mast cells contain chemicals that help mediate inflammation, and lymphocytes are involved in immunity. The loose packing of areolar tissue is often associated with other connective tissue types, such as reticular tissue and fat, adipose tissue. Dense connective tissue. Protein fibers of dense connective tissue form thick bundles and fill nearly all of the extracellular space. Most of the cells of developing. End of page 124, beginning page 125. Dense connective tissue are spindle-shaped fibroblasts. Once the fibroblasts become completely surrounded by matrix, they are fibrocytes. Dense connective tissue can be subdivided into two major groups, regular and irregular. Dense regular connective tissue has protein fibers in the cellular matrix that are oriented predominantly in one direction. Dense regular collagenous connective tissue, table 4.9a, has abundant collagen fibers. The collagen fiber gives this tissue a white appearance. Dense regular collagenous connective tissue forms structures such as tendons, which connect muscles to bones. See Chapter 11. And most ligaments, which connect bones to bones. See Chapter 8. The collagen fibers of dense connective. End of page 125, beginning page 126. Tissue resist stretching and give the tissue considerable strength in the direction of the fiber orientation. Tendons and most ligaments consist almost entirely of thick bundles of densely packed parallel collagen fibers with the orientation of the collagen fibers in one direction, which makes the tendons and ligaments very strong, cable-like structures. The general structures of tendons and ligaments are similar, but there are major differences between them, such as the following. 1. Collagen fibers of ligaments are often less compact. 2. Some fibers of many ligaments are not parallel. And 3. Ligaments usually are more flattened than tendons and form sheets or bands of tissues. Dense, regular, elastic connective tissue, table 4.9b, consists of parallel bundles of collagen fibers and abundant elastic fibers. The elastin in elastic ligaments gives them a slightly yellow color. Dense, regular, elastic connective tissue forms some elastic ligaments, such as those in the focal folds and the nuchal back of the neck ligament, which lies along the posterior of the neck, helping hold the head upright. When elastic ligaments are stretched, they tend to shorten their original length, much as an elastic band does. Dense, irregular connective tissue contains protein fibers arranged as a meshwork of randomly oriented fibers. Alternatively, the fibers within a given layer of dense, irregular connective tissue can be oriented in one direction, whereas the fibers of adjacent layers are oriented at nearly right angles to that layer. Dense irregular connective tissue forms sheets of connective tissue that have strength in many directions, but less strength in any single direction than does regular connective tissue. Dense irregular collagenous connective tissue, Table 4.9c, forms most of the dermis of the skin, which is the tough inner portion of the skin, see Chapter 5, and of the connective tissue capsules that surround organs such as the kidney and spleen. Dense irregular elastic connective tissue, Table 4.9d, is found in the wall of elastic arteries. In addition to collagen fibers, oriented in many directions, there are abundant elastic fibers in the layers of this tissue. I'm going to pause the reading and return to page 125. So I will be reading the notes on table 4.7 and then 4.8 and later 4.9. Table 4.7 on page 125. Embryonic connective tissue. A. Mesenchyme. Structure. The mesenchymal cells are irregularly shaped. The extracellular matrix is abundant and contains scattered reticular fibers. Location. Mesenchyme is the embryonic tissue from which connective tissues as well as other tissues arise. And for each of these tables there are pictures, which, as I will keep saying, I'm not going to show. So, next, B. Mucous connective tissue. Structure. Mucous tissue is mesenchymal tissue that remains unspecialized. The cells are regularly shaped. The extracellular matrix is abundant and contains scattered reticular fibers. Location. Umbilical cord of newborns. So, end of page, table 4.7. Turning to page 126 to read table 4.8. Loose connective tissue. Structure. Cells, e.g., for example, fibroblasts, macrophages, and lymphocytes. Within a fine network of mostly collagen fibers, often merges with denser connective tissue. Function. Loose packing, support, and nourishment for the structures within which it is defined. Location. Widely distributed throughout the body, substance on which epithelial basement membranes rest. Packing between glands, muscles, and nerves. Attaches the skin to underlying tissues. That's the end of table 4.8. I'll be proceeding to page 127 to read table 4.9. Dense connective tissue. A. dense, regular, collagenous connective tissue. Structure: matrix composed of collagen fibers running in somewhat the same direction. Function: ability to withstand great pulling forces exerted in the direction of fiber orientation, great tensile strength and stretch resistance. Location: tendons attach muscle to bone, and ligaments attach bones to each other. B. Dense, regular, elastic connective tissue. Structure: matrix composed of regularly arranged collagen fibers and elastin fibers. Function: capable of stretching and recoiling like a rubber band, with strength in in the direction of fiber orientation. Location: ligaments between the vertebrae along the dorsal aspect of the neck, nuca or nucha, and in the vocal cords. End of page 127. Beginning page 128. Table 4.9, dense connective tissue continued. C. Dense, irregular, collagenous connective tissue. Structure: matrix composed of collagen fibers that run in all directions, or in alternating planes of fibers oriented in a somewhat single direction. Function: tensile strength capable of withstanding stretching in all directions. Location: sheaths most of the dermis of the skin, organ capsules and septa, outer covering of body tubes. D. Dense, irregular, elastic connective tissue. Structure: matrix composed of bundles and sheets of collagenous and elastin fibers, oriented in multiple directions. Function: capable of strength with stretching and recoil in several directions. Location: elastic. Resuming the main reading. Connective tissue with special properties. Adipose tissue and reticular tissue are connective tissues with special properties. Adipose tissue, table 4.10a, consists of adipocytes or fat cells which contain large amounts of lipid. Unlike other connective tissue types, adipose tissue is composed of large cells and a small amount of extracellular matrix, which consists of loosely arranged collagen and reticular fibers with some scattered elastic fibers. Blood vessels form a network in the extracellular matrix. The fat cells are usually arranged in clusters or lobules separated from one another by loose connective tissue. Adipose tissue functions as an insulator, a protective tissue, and a site of energy storage. Lipids take up less space per calorie than either carbohydrates or proteins, and therefore are well adapted for energy storage. Adipose tissue exists in both yellow, in parentheses white, end parentheses, and brown forms. Yellow adipose tissue is by far the most abundant. Yellow adipose tissue appears white at birth, but it turns yellow with age because of the accumulation of pigments such as carotene, a plant pigment that humans can metabolize as a source of vitamin A. Storage, insulation, and protection are the functions of yellow adipose tissue. Brown adipose tissue is found only in specific areas of the body, such as the axillae, armpits, the neck, and near the kidneys. The brown color results from the cytochrome pigments in its numerous mitochondria and its abundant blood supply. Although brown fat is much more prevalent in babies than in adults, it is difficult to distinguish brown fat from yellow fat in babies because the color difference between them is not great. Brown fat is specialized to generate heat as a result of oxidative metabolism of lipid. End of page 128, beginning of page 129. Molecules in mitochondria and can play a significant role in body temperature regulation in newborn babies. Reticular tissue forms the framework of lymphatic tissue, table 4.10b, such as in the spleen and lymph nodes, as well as in bone marrow and the liver. It is characterized by a network of reticular fibers and reticular cells. Reticular cells produce the reticular fibers and remain closely attached to them. The spaces between the reticular fibers can contain a wide variety of other cells, such as dendritic cells, which look very much like reticular cells, but are cells of the immune system, macrophages, and blood cells. See Chapter 22. Pausing the reading to read Table 4.10. Connective tissue with special properties. A. Adipose tissue. Structure. Little extracellular matrix surrounding cells. The adipocytes, or fat cells, are so full of lipid that the cytoplasm is pushed to the periphery of the cell. Function. Packing material, thermal insulator, energy storage, and protection of organs against injury from being bumped or jarred. Location. Predominantly in subcutaneous areas, in mesenteries, in renal pelvis, around kidneys, attached to the surface of the colon, in mammary glands, in loose connective tissue that penetrates into spaces and crevices. B. Reticular tissue. Structure. Fine network of reticular fibers irregularly arranged. Function. Provides a superstructure for the lymphatic and hemopoietic. Location. Within the lymph nodes, spleen, and bone marrow. End of page 129, beginning page 130. Cartilage. Cartilage is composed of cartilage cells, or chondrocytes, located in spaces called lacunae, or lacunae, within an extensive and relatively rigid matrix. Next to bone marrow, cartilage is the firmest structure in the body. The matrix contains protein fibers, ground substance, and fluid. The matrix contains protein fibers, ground substance. The protein fibers are collagen fibers or collagen and elastic fibers. The ground substance consists of proteoglycans and other organic molecules. Most of the proteoglycans in the matrix form aggregates with hyaluronic acid. Within the cartilage matrix, proteoglycan aggregates function as minute sponges capable of trapping large quantities of water. This trapped water allows cartilage to spring back after being compressed. The cartilage fibers give cartilage considerable strength. The surface of nearly all cartilage is surrounded by a layer of dense, irregular connective tissue called the perichondrium. The structure of the perichondrium is described in more detail in Chapter 6. Cartilage cells arise from the perichondrium and secrete cartilage matrix. Once completely surrounded by matrix, the cartilage cells are called chondrocytes, and the spaces in which they are located are called lacunae. Cartilage has no blood vessels or nerves, except those of the perichondrium. It therefore heals very slowly after an injury, because the cells and nutrients the cells and nutrients necessary for tissue repair cannot reach the damaged area easily. There are 3 types of cartilage. 1. Hyaline. Hyaline cartilage has large amounts of both collagen fibers and proteoglycans. Table 4.11a. Collagen fibers are evenly dispersed throughout the ground substance, and in joints, hyaline cartilage has a very smooth surface. Specimens appear to have a glossy, translucent matrix when viewed through a microscope. Hyaline cartilage is found in areas in which strong support and some flexibility are needed. Such as in the rib cage and the cartilage within the trachea and bronchi. See Chapter 23. It also covers the surfaces of bones that move smoothly against each other in joints. Hyaline cartilage forms most of the skeleton before it is replaced by bone in the embryo, and it is involved in growth that increases the length of bones. See Chapter 6. 2. Fibrocartilage has more collagen fibers than proteoglycans. Table 4.11b. Compared with hyaline cartilage, fibrocartilage has much thicker bundles of collagen fibers dispersed throughout its matrix. Fibrocartilage is slightly compressible and very tough. It is found in areas of the body where a great deal of pressure is applied to joints, such as in the knee, the jaw, and between vertebrae. 3. Elastic cartilage has elastic fibers in addition to collagen and proteoglycans. Table 4.11c. The numerous elastic fibers are dispersed throughout the matrix of elastic cartilage. It is found in areas such as the external ears that have rigid but elastic properties. Pausing the reading to read Table 4.11. Connective tissue. Cartilage. A. Hyaline cartilage. Structure. Collagen fibers are small and evenly dispersed in the matrix, making the matrix appear transparent. The cartilage cells, or chondrocytes, are found in spaces or lacunae within the firm but flexible matrix. Function. Allows growth of long bones, provides rigidity with some flexibility in the trachea, bronchi, ribs, and nose. Forms rugged, smooth, yet somewhat flexible articulating surfaces. Forms the embryonic skeleton. Location. Growing long bones, cartilage rings of the respiratory system, costal cartilage of ribs, nasal cartilages, articulating surfaces of bones, embryonic skeleton. End of page 130, beginning page 131. Table 4.11, connective tissue, cartilage continued. B. Fibrocartilage. Structure. Collagenous fibers similar to those in hyaline cartilage. The fibers are more numerous than in other cartilages and are arranged in thick bundles. Function. Somewhat flexible and capable of withstanding considerable pressure. Connects structures subjected to great pressure. Location. Intervertebral discs, symphysis, pubis, articular discs. Example, knee and temporomandibular in brackets jaw and brackets joints. C. Elastic cartilage. Structure. Similar to hyaline cartilage, but matrix also contains elastin fibers. Function. Provides rigidity with even more flexibility than hyaline cartilage, because elastic fibers return to their original shape after being stretched. Location. External ears, epiglottis, auditory tubes. That's the end of table 4.11, resuming the main reading. Bone. Bone is a hard connective tissue that consists of living cells and mineralized matrix. Bone matrix has an organic and an inorganic portion. The organic portion consists of protein fibers, primarily collagen and other organic molecules. The mineral or inorganic portion consists of specialized crystals called hydroxyapatite. Hydroxyapatite, which contains calcium and phosphate. The strength and rigidity of the mineralized matrix allow bones to support and protect other tissues and organs. Bone cells or osteocytes are located within holes in the matrix, which are called lacunae, and are similar to the lacunae of cartilage. Two types of bone exist. 1. Cancellous, or spongy bone, has spaces between trabeculae, or beams, or plates of bone, and therefore resembles a sponge. Table 4.12a. 2. Compact bone is more solid with almost no space between many thin layers, or lamellae. Lamellae of bone. Table 4.12b. End of page 131, beginning page 132. Table 4.12. Connective tissue, bones. A. Cancellous bone. Structure. Lattice-like network of scaffolding characterized by trabeculae with large spaces between them, filled with hemopoietic tissue. The osteocytes or bone cells are located within lacunae in the trabeculae. Function. Acts as a scaffolding to provide strength and support without the greater weight of compact bone. Location. In the interior of the bones of the skull, vertebrae, sternum, and pelvis, and in the ends of the long bones. B. Compact bone. Structure. A hard, bony matrix predominates many osteocytes, not seen in this bone preparation, are located within lacunae that are distributed in a circular fashion around the central canals. Small passageways connect adjacent lacunae. Function. Provides great strength and support. Forms a solid outer shell on bones that keeps them from being easily broken or punctured. Location. Outer portions of all bones, the shafts of long bones. Continuing the main reading. Bone, unlike cartilage, has a rich blood supply. For this reason, bone can repair itself much more readily than can cartilage. Bone is described more fully in Chapter 6. Blood and hemopoietic tissue. Blood is unusual among the connective tissues because the matrix between the cells is liquid. Table 4.13a. Like many other connective tissues, blood has abundant extracellular matrix. The cells of most other connective tissues are more or less stationary within a relatively rigid matrix, but blood cells are free to move within a fluid matrix. Some blood cells leave the bloodstream and wander through other tissues. The liquid matrix of blood allows it to flow rapidly through the body, carrying food, oxygen, waste products, and other materials. The matrix of blood is also unusual in that most of it is produced by cells contained in other tissues, rather than by blood cells. Blood is discussed more fully in Chapter 19. End of page 132, beginning page 133. Table 4.13, connective tissue. Actually, I'll read that after finishing blood and hemopoietic tissue. Hemopoietic tissue forms blood cells. In adults, hemopoietic tissue is found in bone marrow. Table 4.13b, which is the soft connective tissue in the cavities of bones. There are two types of bone marrow, red marrow and yellow marrow. See Chapter 6. Red marrow is hemopoietic Red marrow is hemopoietic tissue surrounded by a framework of reticular fibers. Hemopoietic tissue produces red and white blood cells. It is described in detail in Chapter 19. In children, the marrow of most bones is red marrow. Yellow marrow consists of yellow adipose tissue and does not produce blood cells. As children grow, yellow marrow replaces much of the red marrow in bones. See Chapter 6. Now I will read Table 4.13. Connective tissue, blood and hemopoietic tissue. A. Blood. Structure. Blood cells and a fluid matrix. Function. Transports oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, nutrients, waste products, and other substances. Protects the body from infections, and is involved in temperature regulation. Location. Within the blood vessels produced by the hemopoietic tissue, white blood cells frequently leave the blood vessels and enter the interstitial spaces. B. Bone marrow. Structure. Reticular framework with numerous blood-forming cells. Red marrow. Function. Production of new blood cells. Red marrow. Lipid storage. Yellow marrow. Location. Within marrow cavities of bone. Two types. Red marrow, hemopoietic, or blood-forming tissue. In the ends of long bones and in short, flat, and irregular shaped bones. Yellow marrow is mostly adipose tissue and is found in the shafts of long bones. End of Table 4.13 and end of page 133. Beginning page 134. Marfan syndrome. Marfan syndrome is an autosomal dominant genetic disorder that affects approximately 1 in 5,000 people. The gene for Marfan syndrome, called the fibrillin gene, is located on chromosome 15. It codes for a protein called fibrillin 1, which is necessary for the normal structure of the elastic fibers of connective tissue, including the fibers holding the lens of the eye in place. Children of a person with Marfan syndrome have a 50% chance of inheriting the disorder because it is an autosomal dominant trait. See Chapter 3. About 25% of the cases of Marfan syndrome, however, occur in children whose parents do not have the disorder. In these cases, a mutation of the gene occurs during the formation of sperm cells or oocytes. Many different mutations are possible because changes can occur anywhere in the nucleotide sequence of the fibrillin gene. Several hundred different alleles, variants of the fibrillin gene are known. Many people with Marfan syndrome have limbs, fingers, and toes that are disproportionately long in relation to the rest of the body. Connective tissues are weakened. As a consequence, the heart valves, which are comprised largely of connective tissue, do not function normally, resulting in heart murmurs, abnormal heart sounds. Poor vision is common because the lenses of the eyes are positioned abnormally. The lungs are prone to collapse, and dilation of large arteries, such as the aorta, can occur. A common cause of death in people with Marfan syndrome is rupture of the aorta. There is no cure for the condition, but treatments can reduce the danger of having Marfan syndrome. For example, drugs that lower blood pressure reduce the effects of Marfan syndrome on the aorta. Muscle tissue. The main characteristic of muscle tissue is that it contracts or shortens with a force and therefore is responsible for movement. Muscle contraction is accomplished by the interaction of contractile proteins, which are described in Chapter 9. Muscles contract to move the entire body, to pump blood through the heart and blood vessels, and to decrease the size of hollow organs, such as the stomach and urinary bladder. The three types of muscle tissue, skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscle, are grouped according to structure and function. Table 4.14. Skeletal muscle is what normally is thought of as, quote, muscle, end quote. Table 4.15a. It is the meat of animals and constitutes about 40% of a person's body weight. As the name implies, skeletal muscle attaches to the skeleton and enables body movement. Skeletal muscle is described as being under voluntary, conscious control because one can purposefully cause skeletal muscle contractions to achieve specific body movements. However, the nervous system can cause skeletal muscles to contract without conscious involvement, such as during reflex movements and maintenance of muscle tone. Skeletal muscle cells are long cylindrical cells with several nuclei per cell. The nuclei are located near the periphery of the cells. Some skeletal muscle cells extend the length of an entire muscle. Skeletal muscle cells are striated or banded because of the arrangement of contractile proteins within the cells. See Chapter 9. Cardiac muscle is the muscle of the heart. It is responsible for pumping blood. Table 4.15b. It is under involuntary, unconscious control, although one can learn to influence the heart rate by using techniques such as meditation and biofeedback. Cardiac muscle cells are cylindrical but much shorter than skeletal muscle cells. Cardiac muscle cells are striated and usually have one nucleus per cell. They, end of page 134, skipping page 135 because of the table 4.15, which covers the majority of the page, and resuming the reading on page 136. Often are branched and connected to one another by intercalated discs. Intercalated means in between, as it says in the text in parentheses, or it implies. The intercalated discs, which contain specialized gap junctions, are important in coordinating the contractions of the cardiac muscle cells. See Chapter 20. Smooth muscle forms the walls of hollow organs, except the heart. It is found in the skin and the eyes. Table 4.15c. It is responsible for a number of functions, such as the movement of food through the digestive tract and emptying of the urinary bladder. Like cardiac muscle, smooth muscle is controlled involuntarily. Smooth muscle cells are tapered at each end and, have a single nucleus and are not striated. Pausing the reading, returning to page 134 to read table 4.14. Comparison of muscle types. Skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, smooth muscle. Skeletal muscle location. Attached to bones. Cell shape. Very long, cylindrical cells. 1 to 4 centimeters and may extend the entire length of the muscle. 10 to 100 micrometers in diameter. Nucleus. Multinucleated, peripherally located. Striations, yes. Control, voluntary, conscious. Ability to contract spontaneously, no. Function, body movement. Special features, none available. Or blank. There's nothing written in the space, so I'm just saying that. Next, cardiac muscle. Location, heart. Cell shape, cylindrical cells that branch. 100 to 500 micrometers in length. 12 to 20 micrometers in diameter. Nucleus, single, centrally located. Striations, yes. Control, involuntary, unconscious. Ability to contract spontaneously, yes. Function, contraction provides the major force for moving blood through the blood vessels. Special features. branching fibers, intercalated discs containing gap junctions joining the cells to each other. Smooth muscle. Location: walls of hollow organs. Blood vessels, eyes, glands, skin. Cell shape. Spindle-shaped cells, 15 to 200 micrometers in length, 5 to 8 micrometers in diameter. Nucleus: single, centrally located. Striations: no. Control: involuntary, unconscious. Ability to contract spontaneously: yes. Function: movement of food through the digestive tract, emptying of the urinary bladder, regulation of blood vessel diameter, change in pupil size, contraction of many gland ducts, movement of hair, and many more functions. Special features: gap junctions. End of table 4.14 and page 134. Beginning page 135. Table 4.15. Muscle tissue. A. Skeletal muscle. Structure: skeletal muscle cells or fibers appear striated, banded. Cells are large, long, and cylindrical with many nuclei located at the periphery. Function: movement of the body under voluntary, conscious control. Location: attaches to bone or other connective tissue. B. Cardiac muscle. Structure: cardiac muscle cells are cylindrical and striated and have a single centrally located nucleus. They are branched and connected to one another by intercalated discs, which contain gap junctions. Function: pumps the blood under involuntary, unconscious control. Location: in the heart. End of page 135. Beginning page 136, or resuming page 136. Table 4.15 continued. Muscle tissue. Muscle tissue continued. C. Smooth muscle. Structure: smooth muscle cells are tapered at each end, are not striated, and have a single nucleus. Function: regulates the size of organs, forces fluid through tubes, controls the amount of light entering the eye, and produces, quote, goose flesh, end quote, in the skin, under involuntary, unconscious control. Location: in hollow organs, such as the stomach and intestine. End of table 4.15, resuming the main reading. Nervous tissue. The fourth and final class of tissue is nervous tissue. It is found in the brain, spinal cord, and nerves, and is characterized by the ability to conduct electrical signals called action potentials. It consists of neurons, which are responsible for this conductive ability, and supports cells called neuroglia. Neurons or nerve cells Table 4.16 are the conducting cells of nervous tissue. Just as an electrical wiring system transports electricity throughout a house, neurons transport electrical signals throughout the body. They are composed of three major parts: cell body, dendrites, and axon. The cell body contains the nucleus and is the site of general cell functions. Dendrites and axons are two types of nerve cell processes, both consisting of projections of cytoplasm surrounded by membrane. Dendrites usually receive action potentials. They are much shorter than axons and usually taper to a fine tip. Axons usually conduct action potentials away from the cell body. They can be much longer than dendrites, and they have a constant diameter along their entire length. Neurons that possess several dendrites and one axon are called multipolar neurons. Table 4.16a. Neurons that possess a single dendrite and an axon are called bipolar neurons. Some very specialized neurons, called unipolar neurons, Table 4.16b, have only one axon and no dendrites. Within each subgroup are many shapes and sizes of neurons, especially in the brain and the spinal cord. Neuroglia, or nerve glue, are the support cells of the brain, spinal cord, and peripheral nerves. The term neuroglia originally referred only to the support cells of the central nervous system, but it is now applied to cells in the peripheral nervous system as well. Neuroglia nourish, protect, and insulate neurons. Neurons and neuroglial cells are described in greater detail in Chapter 11. End of page 136, beginning page 137. Table 4.16, Types of neurons. A. Multipolar neuron. Structure. The neuron consists of dendrites, a cell body, and a long axon. Neuroglia, or support cells, surround the neurons. Function. Neurons transmit information in the form of action potentials, store, quote, information, end quote, and integrate and evaluate data. Neuroglia support, protect, and form specialized sheaths around axons. Location: in the brain, spinal cord, ganglia. B. Unipolar neuron. Structure. The neuron consists of a cell body with one axon. Function. Conducts action potentials from the periphery to the brain or spinal cord. Location. In ganglia outside of the brain and spinal cord. End of table 4.16.